everybody, it's Edie, and I just want to do a quick video here showing how I test my paints. I was talking to some friends and telling them that I like to test all of my paints and kind of feel them and, you know, determine how thick they are and, you know, what projects they'll work the best for, because not all paint is created equally, even though it's the same brand. Even though it's the same color, you know, different brands and different thicknesses really make a difference in your painting. So what I did was grab everything that I had in the Titan Buff shade. So I have a Liquitex Basics, and this one is actually unbleached titanium, but it's the same basic color. This is Liquitex Heavy Body unbleached titanium. This is Liquitex Soft Body in unbleached titanium. And then I have a golden Titan Buff. This is a fluid acrylic. And I have, this one is not technically the Titan Buff color. It's called Sand, but it's Americana. It's just a cheapy craft paint. And it was the one that I had that was closest in color to these. So what I do is, I'll flip back and show you some of my other practice pages so you can kind of see. This was one that I did a value scale on, so I started with blue. This was ultramarine blue, and I kept adding little bits of white to the page until I had no blue left and it was all white. So it was, you know, just a dot of white, and then, you know, a couple of dots of white, and then a few more dots of white, and then before you know it, I had nothing but white left. All the blue had basically been whited out. And I did the same thing with a deep green, a marigold. This one is marigold craft paint. So I made sure to test not only paints like this, I also tested paints like this. And basically just went from the straight color out of the bottle, adding white, adding white, adding white, until you get to nothing but white left. This was complementary colors. I started with a blue and an orange, and I added a little bit of orange to the blue, and then a little bit more orange, a little bit more orange, until there was no blue left, and I got back to my original orange. And so this is kind of how you find the different shades and colors within the few colors that you have. If you only have, you know, say 5 or 6 colors, you can still make plenty of colors to complement and shade and all of those things with. So I'll show you a little bit about, or a little how I do my pages. This was one where I also did my distress inks. I wanted to see what they look like on paper. So this was some ink over here. These are inks, dye inks actually. These are dye inks. And then these little scratches of color here, these are distress inks, the Tim Holtz distress inks. And I wrote what color it was on the page, so that I'll know when I go back to it. And this is just all like test stuff right here in this part of my journal. And this was a bunch of stamps that I had, and I wanted to know what they looked like, so I just stamp them down. So when I'm actually testing, and I'm going to do a lot of testing, I'll do a gesso page and a non-gesso page. I have another page in here somewhere that's like this, and it's like here's another one. This is the colors that I'm going to use tonight. This is them again, and you know, with different techniques as well. But I'll do a gesso page and a non-gesso page because I like to compare and see the difference. I usually use gesso on all of my pages, but on occasion I won't. If I see that the paint will do well without gesso, then sometimes I won't gesso. But for this test, because I want to know exactly how this paint is going to work both ways, I did a full gesso page and then a full page with no gesso on it. And you know, it says gesso page, non-gesso page up here, so that when I go back to this, I'll know what I'm looking at. So what I do is I write what I'm using. So this is golden fluid acrylic, and it's Titan Buff. So that way I know exactly what paint this is. And I'll just put a little drop of it on the square and paint it on. And that's on the gesso side. And then I'll do the same thing over here, golden fluid acrylic, tighten buff, drop a drop, and paint it on.
Okay, everybody, let's take it from the top, okay?
And if I see that the paint's thin enough, I don't mind if I cover up the words. As long as I can still see through it to know what it is, then I'm alright with that. So the next one is, I don't have any more golden, so I'm going to go ahead and go to the Liquitex. And I'll start with the Liquitex Basics. And this is unbleached titanium. Same thing over here.
Hey, come on. These are the kinds of seats you get when you look at the last.
And then, whoops. Put a drop here and a drop here. And that's probably way too much paint, but it's alright.
Let's get out.
So I can already see that this one is much thicker, and I have to be careful not to cover up my words. But I can feel the difference, and this is a much thicker paint. You know, the fluid acrylics is very translucent. I could see my words, and I've slightly covered here so that I know it's going to really cover. It's very opaque compared to the fluid acrylic. So now I'm going to switch to the soft body. Rinse my paintbrush out here. And I'm going to go ahead and write all the names down, and then I'll come back and just paint them on. Okay, so now I've gone through all of my different brands of this color. And I have a gauge for whenever I get ready to paint. I'll know what they look like, and I can compare them. But I also want to see how they change depending on what I add to them. So I'm going to use my Liquitex Basics, and it's the unbleached titanium. And I'm going to add some glazing medium to this, and I'm also going to add water to it. Separate, you know, I'll add some of this. I'll add water to some, and then I'll do another little spot, and I'll add some glazing medium to it because I want to see how it changes whenever I add different mediums to it. So I'll just do a little dot. And this is a Liquitex glazing medium. And just a little drop of that. So it's basically equal amounts here. I have 1 drop of paint and 1 drop of glazing medium. And I can see that it makes it much thinner, it makes the paint go a lot farther. So now I'm going to do a spot of the Liquitex. Oops. Okay, so now I'm going to mix some water in with this. And I've basically made a wash here. I've made it really thin with water so that I have a wash. And now this is more like the consistency of the golden fluid acrylics. It's actually thinner than that, but it's really translucent like that now. Okay, this is all dry, and you can see I have a green spot here. And the reason I did that is because you can also do this with different techniques to see how paint is going to react. So I have a spot of green here, and I just used Soho acrylic paint, and this is Hooker's Green. And I've painted that, and it is completely dry because I want to see how my Liquitex Basics works over other dry paints. I want to see how it blends with wet paint. And then I also want to try it with a few other techniques. So I'm going to take my Liquitex, and I'm going to paint it directly over the Hooker's Green here to see how it looks. And I left a spot that was still white with gesso. because I wanted to see how it went from with nothing underneath it to paint underneath it, to see how translucent it was and the kind of effect that I would get. So there's no green here and there is green here, all in the same block. Now I want to blend these two together, so I'm going to take a little bit of the Hooker's green and some of the unbleached titanium. And again, I'm starting over here where there's no green, and then I'm going to blend them together to see what happens. Now I'm going to try this with some different techniques. I'm going to take my Liquitex Basics, again with the same color here, and I'm going to paint that down. And then while it's still wet, I'm going to drop some water drops on here and let those water drops just dry. Now I'm going to do the same thing over here. And while it's wet, I'm going to add some alcohol drops to it. So I'm just going to, well, that didn't work out. That didn't work out like I had planned. But you get the idea. So I dropped some alcohol on this page while it's still wet. And I don't know if you've ever done that before, but when you drop alcohol onto acrylic paint like that, it makes these like starbursts almost, these sunbursts, and the paint actually gets pushed to the edge of the pool, which is really cool, really cool. And now I'll just let these dry and I'll show you the finished result. Okay, so this is all dry now, and I don't know if you can see it, but where I put the water drops on here, you can see that it basically washed away the paint. I have some writing on the back side of the page here, and that's showing through right where the water drops were at. But right here where I have alcohol drops, you can't really even see that much of a difference now. Even the little beaded raised area has softened out. And I have writing right there as well, but it's not showing through. So that would be something that I would further investigate. Maybe dropping, I would probably put down the unbleached titanium and then maybe put the green over the top of it and then add the alcohol to that to see what it would do. So the possibilities are endless. Anything that you want to test out and see how it's going to react, just make a test page in your journal. You don't, like this page back here, I basically took up a whole page doing a whole bunch of big spots. You don't have to do that. You can do little spots, you can do inchies, you can make a grid, whatever. See, this was another just random test page, little doodles here. But just test it out and see what your paint will do, see what your products will do, and see everything that you can get out of it. See what all it'll do. So that's it. That's my test page, and I'll see you next time. Mwah! Bye!